All right, I don't know what time it is on your clock, but I know what I'm getting ready for. It is time for the Professional CISO Podcast with David Malicoat.
Welcome to the Professional CISO Podcast. I'm your host, David Malicoat. This show is an exploration of the topics necessary to transform the role of CISO into that of a professional. All right, gang, today we have an interview with a security leader in the animal health space. Definitely a first for the podcast. Her roots are in land administration, which she kind of paused when I said that the first time, because I went deep into the resume there. IT management and cybersecurity management. Notable about our guest today is she's lived in 5 states and 12 different cities during her career. So obviously adaptability is a big thing for our guest today. And her favorite travel spot is Alaska. So she went there at 17 years old and returns often. It's her favorite place to travel to, which I have never been to Alaska. I've been like all over the world, but not Alaska. We'll get there. All right, so a little reminder today, 12th Annual North Texas ISSA Cybersecurity Conference is on September 6th. We are going to be there. We'll be set up in some sort of prominent space. We don't know exactly where yet, but we'll be recording. We'll be recording with some of the speakers. Hey, drop by. We may have a little bit of time. Pop you in the seat. See what you're thinking about the conference as it goes. But Plano Event Center in Plano, Texas. 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. I think that's a Friday, if I recall. The 6th is. And more information is forthcoming, and we'll put a link in the show notes over to their information page. Also, please like, follow, share. It's the best way to make sure that this content continues to come to you. We're getting good reach. This is not a desperate plea or anything like that, but we're seeing a steady tick, and we want to keep that going. So hit that follow button on Spotify or Apple, or hit that subscribe button on YouTube, depending on which age bracket you sit in, because I think the YouTubers tend to be a little bit younger. Follow us on LinkedIn, no matter what age you are, and share us with a friend or colleague. If you get something valuable out of this podcast, let us know, and share that with a friend or colleague. All right. Now, let's talk about being a professional CISO. In today's episode, our guest is Sonja Hammond. She is currently the Chief Information Security Officer and Vice President of IT Architecture and Engineering at National Veterinary Associates. She's held positions at Cigna, Callaway Golf Company, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and Essilor Group, hence the lots of cities. Please welcome Sonja Hammond.
Well, thanks, Dave, for having me.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so human story, right? We're in this technology business. It's bits and bytes, but it really comes down to humans and relationships. So I love to start the podcast off with, tell me your story, whether it's a young girl of Sonja Hammond or a young lady of Sonja Hammond. Where did you get that first bug around technology, let's say? And then how did that kind of convert, tell me that whole story arc into today.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Grew up in the South, not a lot of exposure to technology. And when I started college, the only thing we really thought about was, doctor, lawyer, those kind of things. But I was given an assignment to do a paper on the computer. And that's the first time I'd ever seen a computer. But the minute I saw it, touched it, played with it, I was hooked.
Got it.
From that moment forward, it was technology all the way. I felt like I would be an IT professional my entire career. About mid-career, moved to a security role. I started doing some forensic work, kind of had a knack for it, and made a switch. At that point, 15, 16 years ago, we had no idea what cybersecurity was going to become.
Right.
And wow, it's been a great path.
So 2 things. One is totally related but not related. I hear the accent. Where did you come from? Where in the South?
I grew up in Batesville, Arkansas.
Love it.
It's a little town in northeast Ozarks, about 12,000 people.
Love it. I've got a good friend of mine that's from that area as well.
Yes.
Brian Lawson, one of my former Marine Corps colleagues. So, and then my wife's family is all from Arkansas. I think that's why I hit it. I was like, I recognize that accent. The other is, okay, so you started in IT. Can you talk me through kind of that more detail of that switch over? You kind of said, I got this opportunity, but kind of talk me through those details of how that actually happened. Did we meet cybersecurity as it was growing and it was burgeoning, or you purposely said, I want to go into that new cybersecurity thing? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it was actually more of an accident. I mean, I was ingrained in the technology. I loved working in IT, building servers and networks and managing very technical teams, database administration. That was something I really enjoyed. And I started doing forensic work, supporting the legal team at Callaway Golf. And I just kind of had a knack for it because of my technical background. And at the time, we called it information security. So I was asked, like, hey, why don't you move to this information security role full time and focus on the security aspects? Also at that time, they were just starting to talk about protecting credit card data. So that was another piece that kind of enticed me. And from there, it has just grown. It exploded from being focused on, forensics and data to, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just been a whirlwind of how do we protect, the business, the information, the people.
So talk me also through real quick. Yes, you got into cyber, or information security at that point, but as we now know, cybersecurity. When did the leadership bug kind of take hold? When did you figure out that leadership was your path?
I don't think I figured that out.
It chose you.
It chose me. Yeah, early career, coming out of college, I had an MBA, and as soon as I finished my graduate degree, I moved into a management position. So I was started with managing a desktop support team, and just worked my way up through the ranks. But I think it chose me because I really related to the individuals that reported to me. I made sure that, I would do the same training they went to. I would make sure I could do a little bit of their role, so I knew how to speak to them about the job that they do. And that's just something that I've kind of kept with me through the years, is making sure that the people that report to me know that I have some level of technical knowledge, so that when they're trying to explain an issue to me or a request to me, I get it.
Love it. Okay, so now we're going to kind of move into the premise of the show, which I ask kind of a standard question, but there's never a standard answer, because I think we said it in the prep, which is you ask 5 CISOs their opinion, you're going to get 6 different answers. So do you believe we must professionalize the role of the CISO? If you do, then what does that mean to you, right? From your experience, what you've seen in your history, what does that mean? And if not, fine, perfectly fine, but if not, why not?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to professionalize it. And to me, there's 2 pieces to that. I think there's leadership. I think a CISO sits in a good position in a company to really be a leader from a strategic standpoint. I also think that it's important to professionalize it, because today we sit as part of the IT department in many cases. And I feel like it's evolving more into a risk role, and so whether it rolls up to a risk organization, a legal organization, even an audit organization possibly. But I think kind of getting away from part of that IT vertical would be a good thing.
And I've heard that a lot as well. And I think, there's this balance between people trying to think that we're just trying to grow ourselves out of, tradition, let's say, versus the real need. I think we have this. Well, maybe I'll ask you that question rather than me giving my opinion. Do we have a mandate almost to be able to help other people understand the nature of our role and where it's going?
Absolutely. I think we need to impress upon executives that the CISO can bring leadership in not only securing the business, protecting the data, protecting the people, but also giving a very strategic perspective on things. And I think that's where there's growth for the CISOs, is to move into more of a strategy. It's not all about incident response.
Right.
You know, it's how can we intertwine security and support the business direction and the business goals.
How do we do that without sounding like we're trying to bash or separate ourselves from where we came from, right? And
Lead by example. You know, I've worked in several different companies, and it's interesting how, you know, when you first go into the role, people have a preconceived idea of what a CISO is, you know, what they do. And I think it's up to us as individuals to mold that and demonstrate that, you know, I can be a leader. I can work with the business to support revenue goals even, and do it securely. And also make sure that the impact of security is not so great on the business that it's hampering people's ability to do their job.
Right.
So lead by example.
Love it, love it. Okay, and so we kind of talk about current, and we talk about, you know, a little bit of where we're headed. Like, what's the future though? Like, where are we going with this thing? If you had to flash, you know, 2, 5 or so years in the future, where do you think that CISO role should be?
As previously mentioned, I think it really sits in a risk organization. I think we're going to see risk grow as, you know, a stronger arm in the corporate environment. The landscape is changing so quickly with AI, you know, in the environment. The CISO role is really going to involve, it's evolving very strategically.
Right.
And I feel that CISOs really have to focus on how do I be strategic in securing the business.
Love it, love it. Okay, so, and dovetail right into this, which is, it can be tough in there to gain that support that you're looking for from a stakeholder management, other executives across the business. How, in your experience, how does a CISO go in there and gain that support? What does that look like? And obviously we've heard lead by example. What are some of those other areas that we can work on or maybe take away that we would, to get ourselves gaining that support, whether it be board, other executives across the business?
You know, there's two aspects to it. There's first identifying your supporters, and you definitely want to build those relationships and keep those people on your side. I mean, they're your supporters to start with, but you know, really want to strengthen that relationship. You also want to identify the people who are not supporters. Maybe they don't like security. You know, they think security just makes their work harder and creates obstacles. Those are the people you really want to spend a lot of time with. Get to know, you know, why they have that opinion. What in their past experience has brought them to not liking security. And those are the things you really want to tackle, because once you get those individuals on your side, they have such a strong voice. And those are usually the people that help you, you know, get the support you need and get security in the places it needs to be. So
I'll play a little devil's advocate. That's part of my role as the host of the show. I hear you say that, right? But what I'm kind of hearing is you're telling me that I have to go spend a lot of time with people that may not be productive right out of the gate, or ever, quite honestly. So I don't have a lot of time as a CISO. How do I manage that, right? Is it a risk equation in my own little space here?
Oh, for sure.
So what does that look like to you?
Yeah.
Like, talk me through that as well. How do I manage that aspect of things?
You know, it's the saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I mean, you definitely want to spend more time with those individuals that you're trying to bring on board. And it takes a while to walk in their shoes and to understand why they have a bad taste in their mouth when you say security. So it's worth the investment up front. And for me, I prioritize those people again over my supporters, because my supporters are already there.
Right.
And when I reach out to those individuals, they're going to support me, where these other folks are where I need to spend my time and understand, just walk a day in their shoes.
Right. So I've gone out there, I've done the work, I've gained the support. How do I avoid losing it, right? Like if I'm on to the next thing, right? And I understand it's stakeholder management and there's always an analysis of who to spend time with and for how long and all that. But how do I avoid losing that support? So if I'm spending so much time over here, maybe my supporters, am I risking them now becoming not supporters or neutral?
Sure.
So kind of talk me through, how do I avoid losing support? Is it a stakeholder management exercise?
For sure. More even a time management exercise. I think as a CISO, you have to be very calculated. I talk a lot about being adaptable in the role, because every day's different and you get a lot of things thrown at you, and what you had on your original to-do list is not what you end up doing in the day. At the same time, you still have to manage your time and make sure that you're checking in with your stakeholders, the supporters as well as the non-supporters. You want to make sure that you're pinging them on a routine basis. So I do time management. I keep a calendar, and I'm like, this week I've got to touch base with Bob and Kyle and Sandy, and I make sure that I reach out to those people.
So I'm hearing being very deliberate.
Very deliberate.
To the point of putting it on your calendar or your to-do list, like on a regular cadence.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, shift a little bit. We have seen it, and we were just talking about this in the prep, but the tenure for CISOs is changing, and not really in a good way.
Yeah.
So first, let's talk about the why, right? So you have a unique perspective, generally, where you sit, what you've done. I mean, you've been in places for a pretty decently long time, so you're probably sitting from a side going, holy smokes, I don't look forward to the next one, if at all. So what are you seeing? Tell me your perspective on the tenure of CISOs.
Yeah, I mean, the tenure is shortening very quickly. When you look at even just my roadmap, I've been places 7 years, 6 years, 5 years, 4 years. I mean, it's getting shorter.
Right.
And I think some of that is to combat burnout. This is a role that you really have to spend a lot of time focusing on self-care. Otherwise, the burnout will hit you very quickly. And I think that's what is happening with people. It's taking shorter and shorter time that they're hitting that burnout position. And, when you get there, it's hard to renew yourself. I mean, you kind of realize, like, I've been here at this company in this role. I've done what I can do.
Right.
And so then it's time to move.
What about the aspect of, let's say, the scapegoat, right? So a lot of times the tenure issue becomes because there's an event of some sort that's happened. And I think that's contributing.
Sure.
Are we seeing less of it now? Are we seeing more? I don't know for sure. I could argue both sides, quite honestly.
Yeah.
I just want another CISO's opinion on what are you seeing, because I can see both sides. Are we still getting scapegoated, or are people or organizations kind of figuring it out that that's not the best way to go, to fire the person that knows most about your security? What are you seeing?
Well, it depends.
The lawyer answer.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the type of event. If it's something where the CISO may have been negligent,
Of course.
absolutely scapegoat.
Right. But at that point, is that really a scapegoat? Yeah, if you're negligent, you probably deserve to be
Right,
out the door. Right, I'm with you there.
But a lot of times, I mean, it's not, are you going to have an event? It's when are you going to have an event? So I think we're seeing more tolerance now that, we're starting to realize that an event's going to happen, may or may not be, something the CISO did or didn't do. So I think we're seeing less of that scapegoat attitude.
Any advice on how to keep from becoming the scapegoat? Not that you've ever been one, but like just from an observational perspective, I kind of have thoughts as well, so we maybe exchange them a little bit. But anything that comes to mind to say, what can I do maybe potentially to make sure that I'm not caught in those crosshairs?
I think there's two things. One, make sure you cover the obvious security gaps. Do the basics. I think
document them.
And document them. But second, document. If you're asking for support in areas and you're not getting it, you've got to document that. Just to have that backup saying, I pointed out the risk.
Right.
I asked for the support, didn't get it, so that's a gap.
Right.
That way when your incident occurs, if it takes advantage of that gap, it's like, I pointed it out, we chose to go a different direction.
And I think that aligns itself with becoming more risk professionals, right?
Yes.
That as we become better at being risk professionals, we can now more effectively have that conversation. And then I think that aligns itself with not becoming the scapegoat, right? Are you seeing that trend as well?
Yeah, I think companies are starting to understand risk a little better. And CISOs are starting to understand a little better that every company has a level of tolerance for risk.
Right.
You just have to find where that level is.
And as we become better educated at the risk side of things, we're able to better analyze what that looks like, right? And then
message it.
And message it. Put it into context and
Yeah.
message it. Yeah, I love it. Love it. Okay. Final question before the Big 10 questions. I always like to get everybody a little nervous. You started as a LAN administrator. And we chuckled about this in the prep, which I wasn't trying to age you or anything like that, but at the same time, I was a Unix systems administrator way back in the day, and back when Sun Solaris still existed, so I'll date myself as well. Not only has your career progressed in IT, but in cybersecurity as well. Things have changed quite a bit during that time. So not just your career has changed, but like IT and cybersecurity has changed radically during that time frame. So I think we will probably have practitioners and let's say, middle level managers right now that are saying things have changed so much. And I'll give you an example. I teach at Collin College. And one of my classes, I said, you need to plan your career, the cloud no longer exists. And it just like blew their mind, right? Like, so you've seen that type of change in IT and cybersecurity. Do you have any other advice for those practitioners, those middle or even senior level managers that, hey, how do you manage that amidst the chaos? How do you manage your own career amidst the chaos?
It's really a forward-looking type career. You really have to think about, what are you hearing that's coming? We heard about AI. Well, now it's here.
Right.
In our timeline, things were all on premise when we started, and then we started moving to data centers, and then we started moving to cloud. And so just knowing kind of what's in the future and making sure that you're preparing for that. Preparation for a CISO, I stand behind you have to know a little bit about everything. And when I say everything, I mean the technology. You have to know a little bit about all the technology. And then not only educating yourself, through taking courses and, certifications, those types of things, but sitting with your staff and learning from them. When we were changing from on-prem to cloud, I spent many hours with my network folks understanding, how does this change the way we secure the environment? How does it change the way we give access to the environment and control who has access? Just making sure that you stay on top of the changes that are coming, so when they get there, you're ready.
I'm a practitioner. I'm kind of struggling to keep up as it is, right, with just kind of the current day stuff. But you're telling me to look forward. How do I balance that? How do I manage those two expectations? Is it I just have to work harder? Is it I run in streaks? Like what's the advice on that as far as being able to handle that kind of pressure?
Well, the CISO role is not just a job that you leave at 5 p.m. every day. It becomes a part of your life.
Right.
So that education and staying on top of things also has to become a part of your life. Taking college courses in the evenings or weekends, that's just something that you have to do to be adaptable and to keep up. And I come back to that all the time. Being a CISO, it's all about being adaptable and managing your time, being very strategic. And, you do that with your education, your schedule, work-life balance.
Yes. Love it. Great advice. I appreciate that because I think it's easy that, we can get overwhelmed regardless of what level you're at. And to have somebody say it is possible, right? Yeah. You do have to be deliberate, I think, is one of the big pieces. And I think it's sometimes you have to zoom in and do the work, but then a lot of times you have to pull back out, zoom out a little bit, and be able to kind of look at where the strategic pieces are putting together. So, and you nailed that very thing. Now we're up for some fun.
Okay.
All right, so we've got 10 questions with Sonja Hammond. What's your favorite word?
Oh, happy.
Love it. What's your least favorite word?
Sad.
What area of your work do you find most interesting?
People.
What area of your work is the most challenging for you?
Getting support.
Love it. What sound or noise do you love?
I love music. It helps me focus.
Any specific type?
I've always been a rock and roll girl.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Screaming.
What's your favorite curse word?
Shit.
Understood. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would love to be an explorer. Just explore nature and going back to the fact that I love Alaska.
I was going to say, it goes back to the Alaska
It's
thing.
unexplored in a lot of places.
I love it. What profession would you not like to do?
Ooh, police officer.
Yeah, very challenging. All right, final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear your God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome and bring your friends and family.
Love it. Everybody, Sonja Hammond. Thank you for being here today. I truly appreciate the time. Obviously, great insights. Today, we covered professionalization of the role, of course, which is what we do every time. But what does that mean to Sonja? I think she gave us some great insights on where we're headed, and near term and long term. We talked about how do you gain support, right? How do you get that support inside your organization? Gave some advice to some folks about how do you manage your career amidst the radical change that is happening in the chosen career field that you're in. So great stuff. Truly appreciate your time today. And colleagues and friends, I renew the call. It's time to professionalize the role of the CISO. In the meantime, I wish you health, happiness, and success in your journey to becoming the professional CISO. Let's do this.
We're professionalizing the CISO role, so please subscribe to the Professional CISO podcast.